Ian, just sort of picking up some of the challenges that we've talked about with data, particularly things like the richness and the scale of it is a sort of competing factors. Some of the stuff that Steph's been talking about in terms of, you know, the responsibility that people have once they have data, because it can be misused. You know, to your point earlier on, you were kind of describing data as a bit of a, I guess it's an asset in either supporting arguments or challenging viewpoints. You know, you can hold data up and say, look, you think this, I've got some data that says otherwise, let's have a conversation. But it can be used the wrong way. I've got a book behind me called How to Lie with Statistics. You know, it's kind of it can be done. So just explore some of that, some of the kind of challenges with quality of data, which might be because of the way it's been captured, all the way to Yodit's point about methodology, and then some of that kind of responsibility, the power of data and the responsibility angle.
Okay, right. Well, I think when you said the richness bit, it took my mind back to what Yodit mentioned a few minutes ago, which was, you know, you can gather all the data, or you could go and talk to people, or you kind of need to do that as well, right? Helicopter out, we're having a conversation so far, essentially about quantitative data, about all of the statistical, numerical stuff that tells us about building performance, right? Going and talking to people, whether we do it face to face, whether we do it through the text boxes on surveys, or whether we do it in the tons more sophisticated ways we can do it now, that is data. It's just different data. It needs processing in different ways. It needs different skill sets, but it can tell us a bunch of stuff. And if we can do it, if we can learn to do it, if we can develop the technologies to do it at scale, then it can stop being so anecdotal as well. Because one of those sort of criticisms is you can gather all this stuff through sensors and look, it's objective, factual stuff. And there's almost you asked me to talk a little bit about power, Chris. There's almost a more powerful play in saying, look, our data is objective, but people are subjective, right? We have feelings, we have emotions. That's the whole well-being part of workplace, amongst other things. So we have to learn to understand that and talk about it with more sophistication. So we have to go there as well. So in terms of, you know, richness of data sets, I guess the thing that's popped into my head now is that sort of classic idea of we've got to understand at a surface level what's going on broadly, but we've also got to develop the capability to dig in and go deeper. And if we can then square that and go broad and deep with emerging technologies, then all sorts of fun, cracking things can happen. I've forgotten the other things you asked me because I got excited about that bit.
Well, it was responsibility, like the misuse of data. You know, it can almost, if you let data get a bit wild and unruly, then people can use it for all sorts of arguments if they present a part of it and not the whole.
Well, is it the data or is it the person that's presenting that's wild and unruly?
Yeah.
Well, this got me, whilst Steph was talking about presenting data and the challenges of it, I was thinking about there's actually almost like a piece of psychology around how the sort of the tricks of getting people in organizations at whatever level, understanding and embracing the opportunities of data in a more powerful way. And some of them could be really simple little tactics. Like one of the things that we've started doing, like many organizations, we've developed, you know, or we develop sort of survey tools to take the temperature of how people are feeling on organizations about cultural stuff, spatial stuff, technological stuff. But one of the things we do with the data sets that come out of that is we go, here are the findings. I'm going to give you them in advance. So that terrifying thing, Steph, where you're giving it to the users, heaven forbid, I'm going to give this into advance because I'm going to come back in 3 days' time and I want to hear what you've seen and I want to hear what questions you want to ask of the data. And then we'll dig deeper and we'll come back to you again. And sometimes we even split the quantitative and the qualitative stuff. So the first reveal is quantitative because that is the stuff that gets read, right? People read stories, they read what they want to see, sometimes into figures, right? Yeah. That statistic says this, which means this. Well, it doesn't, it's just a statistic. What you're doing is you're perceiving a story in that. So sometimes with the first reveal, you can go, okay, have a look at that. Oh, that's interesting. So you feel like that, do you? Right, let's dig into the data. So you do the deep bit next. And when you come back again, you go, that thing you said, you were bang on. that hunch that you had about the statistic is represented in the richer information.
Yeah.
But equally, you might go, I know you're very important, Mr. CEO or Mrs. CEO or whoever, but I'm afraid that's your perception and that's not represented in the rich stuff. The organization loves this or the organization hates this, and your perspective isn't actually an outlier. So it's the psychology of how you present and utilize and bring people on that data insight journey with you is really important as well.
Yeah, I suppose what it's getting us away from is hot takes. You know, there's so many hot takes in boardrooms, right? And it'll be well, I've never seen that, or I don't do that, and I think this
disagree with
happens.
that. Yeah, and that can be a tactic. One of the things that we've learned, during the pandemic is if somebody is uncomfortable with data, a barrage of questions in a boardroom puts you on the back foot. A barrage of questions buys somebody else time while you're recovering. So there's an awful lot about our capabilities with data analysis, information, decision making recommendation, but also the reveal of it and how you bring it to life. You know this as well as I do, Chris. We are a storytelling species. That doesn't mean that we use data to make up fabricated information. It's not a fictional story, but how you reveal and you unfold so people can see what the data means. To your point, Yodit, the particular impedes cognitive performance, right? If you deliver that as a fact, it registers in one way. If you deliver it in a way that you're bought into the implications of that, something else happens.